Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back. We have a tremendous live stream planned this evening. We have Antifa goons attacking a courthouse, very upset that other Antifa conspirators have been indicted and arrested. We'll take a look at the activity on video that was happening last night and some reaction to that today. We've also got the criminal charging document queued up, so we'll see exactly what these insurgents and insurrectionists were ultimately up to, and reaction from the U.S. attorney out there, Mr. Rosen. Then we have more follow-up on the Southern Poverty Law Center. Remember, we saw that they were charged in an original indictment and then a superseding indictment. Inside that superseding indictment, we learned about a very interesting love affair that apparently was happening between a top Southern Poverty Law Center official and a neo-Nazi banging each other. And apparently she was also funneling him over $1 million. We now think we know who that lady is, and wait until you hear from her. All coming up. And then we have a lot of reaction to a guy called Larry Krasner. This is a DA out of Philadelphia, Philly's big fanny. And this guy got absolutely shredded by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, saying that he was making illegal concessions, basically throwing the case so that killers could be freed in violation of his ethical and obligations to his own constituents, letting them go so that the murderers could run free all over Philly. And so it's going to be a beautiful stream. Thank you for joining us. I hope your week has been amazing thus far. We've got some great business to attend to here today. Let's just pause to confirm that all of the tubes are connected, and they are. So let's get right to it. Starting up at the top, Antifa goons attacking courts, now upset that they had their co-conspirators indicted with multiple criminal charges. You see, the DOJ posted this announcement and they sprung right into action. Here's a screen grab of a few of the conspirators, all seen here. In total, it was 15 members of the Direct Action Minnesota Network, a group called DAM, all now charged in federal court. And this was posted by the DOJ. But immediately after the arrests occurred, what did they do? Well, exactly what you would expect. This guy was on scene, Ryan Amaker, shout out, and he is a Donald Trump for President 24 fan, America First, and a right-wing provocateur, which many of us are as well. And he said he was there yesterday. He said out of St. Paul, Minnesota, where a lot of the other insurgency was occurring back during the protest to stop ICE from going and arresting illegal aliens. He says chaos and unrest erupt outside the federal courthouse in St. Paul. Supporters of arrested Antifa agitators gathered during court proceedings. The ICE officers and federal agents were standing their ground, taking a no-nonsense approach to anyone attempting to breach the security perimeter. And it was madness and chaos out there. Here is an excerpt you can see from the scene, and agents popping out of the front door here, blasting people in the face with pepper spray.
Fuck you!
Bad language, apologies.
Fuck you!
Yeah, so trying to insurge the federal courthouse. And you're not seeing this anywhere on the media. It is a full-blown attack to get into the building to go free their compatriots. And here's more. Lunatics.
Fuck you!
All right, so little profanity here today. We'll make sure the swear jar is filled up, but bad scenes out there. And Andy No also had another angle. He was also reporting on this. He said violent Antifa supporters gathered to attack the Warren E. Burger federal courthouse to possibly jailbreak their comrades who were federally indicted and had their first hearing inside the courtroom. We'll take a look at the actual charging document and see what else is inside. But here's another video that he shared. You can see we just scrubbed through this thing. Looks like more of the same from about the same angle. And this is being reported all over the internet. We get a little bit of a zoom in here, and they're throwing stuff at the front door. We've got a guy with a tripod trying to break his way in. We've got other explosive devices that are falling onto the ground. And that's what we're dealing with. This is an insurgency. Now we're starting to get some response to this. Another one from Stu Smith. He said, I am very pro-police, and you can be furious about this, but you cannot swarm a federal courthouse. And you can see here was a guy, don't know exactly what that was, some sort of a deterrent device, and he throws it out the front door. This guy blocks it with his foot and then throws it back inside. So now he's throwing an anti-crowd device back into the federal court building. So this guy, hopefully, is also on the radar and is going to be picked up and charged with other crimes. Here's more of the scene. We'll turn the volume down a little bit. Kicks it, throws it back in so that it could explode inside. And they're still just using potty mouth like a bunch of communists, like the Democrats do. Trying to break into another location and screaming at federal agents, many of them geared up with gas masks on. And the scene continues on. Protest, flipping everybody off. We fast forward and you see that other angle, trying to invade the building. So what we might call this is an actual insurrection, an actual insurgency, which hopefully is being dealt with in the aftermath of this. But we also saw Fox News was covering on this, and Eric Dougherty shared this clip. Here's what Fox News had to say in some of the coverage.
ICE activists are facing new charges.
And this was back over from January 13th, this video. And they have been doing this for a long time. Remember back when we saw the 2 insurgents killed as a result of attacking federal agents? They had organization, the likes of which you haven't seen before in a domestic operation. We had a Green Beret who had a post about this that we read here, who said he had not seen anything like this since the invasion of Afghanistan, when they were organizing spreadsheets to track the federal agents. They had rapid response teams. They had dispatch individuals who were deploying certain people from around Minneapolis to go out there and get in their faces, whistles being blown in the air, in their ears, wrecking their eardrums and their hearing. One guy, Preddy, kicking the back of the vehicles. It was a full-blown organized attack. And the Proud Boys got charged with seditious conspiracy, and then they, of course, had no level of organization or capability like this. So here's more from Fox.
Minnesota. The suspects reportedly have links to Antifa and were aiming to violently oppose federal immigration enforcement. So there are consequences for that, and Garrett Tenney has more. Hi, Garrett.
Yeah, Dana, prosecutors say those 15 individuals are associated with several Antifa-aligned groups that wanted to see a more violent and militant resistance to ICE in the Twin Cities. The Justice Department says these groups and individuals helped supply, train, and organize members for demonstrations like this one back in January, where a few dozen people were armed with shields and used barricades to block off the entrances to the Whipple Federal Building. In one Facebook post, one of the defendants, Cameron Kennedy, blasted those calling for and insisting on peaceful protests, saying, "I want to make this as clear as I can. You will never win with nonviolence alone. Ever. No one has, no one will. You absolutely need militants to win." But as he was leaving court yesterday, Kennedy insisted he didn't do anything wrong, that he was just trying to stand up for his neighbors, and that these charges are politically motivated.
They arrested us because they're trying to find a larger movement. They're trying to hit the rest of Minneapolis. And I think we are just the tip of the iceberg.
There is a larger movement.
They're definitely trying to come after people more for political reprisal.
All 15 individuals are charged with conspiring to impede or injure a federal officer, and only 2 are accused of actually assaulting an officer. Prosecutors aren't saying if any officers were actually injured in those incidents, but they say the fact that they were calling for violence and organizing violent confrontations easily could have led to that.
All right, so maniacs out there and about in Minneapolis. We have the actual charging documents queued up, but before we get there, Homeland said our officers are now facing a coordinated campaign of violence against them, including from these Antifa rioters in Minnesota. Let these indictments be a warning to anyone who lays a hand on our law enforcement. We will find you, we will arrest you, and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Here was Ben Henry from outside the courthouse.
Federal prosecutors say these 15 people were organized and aggressive, including assault allegations. But tonight, questions still remain, including if or how many agents were hurt and how deeply connected all defendants are to groups prosecutors say are part of the Antifa movement.
Our investigation uncovered extensive planning, material support, and coordinated attacks against federal personnel and facilities.
Federal prosecutors allege 15 people from the Twin Cities area used force, threats, intimidation, and organized tactics to interfere with Operation Metro Surge, adding it was part of a coordinated effort connected to Antifa-affiliated groups, including Direct Action Minnesota.
My name is Kyle. I'm Antifa.
Prosecutors sharing this post from Kyle Wagner, they say is the leader of that group.
Get your guns and stop these people.
Inside court documents include ice chunks being thrown at agents and a defendant sideswiping an agent, causing a collision.
So we have the documents now, the DOJ posting an indictment that is 95 pages, but really some of the best highlights are in their press release. And so let's take a look at both. You see, they announced 15 members and associates of Direct Action Minnesota, aka DAM, now charged with multiple federal crimes, conspiracy to impede a federal officer, multiple counts of interstate stalking by tracking these agents, following them to their homes and places of work, interstate threats, solicitation to commit a crime of violence, multiple counts of assault on a federal officer, and destruction of government property. Over the last 24 hours, federal agents with Homeland Security and a coordinated law enforcement operation got the arrest of 12 DAM members. 2 DAM members are still at large, and one was previously in federal custody on separate charges. Todd Blanche out with the statement. Mark Wayne Mullen out saying we have zero tolerance for violence against law enforcement. And this announcement, of course, is the start of hopefully something much bigger. Now, what's interesting here is this is a group that is comprised of members of several subgroups like the Black Cat Workers Collective, the Ray Reynold Memorial Shooting Club, and others. And they are self-proclaimed anti-fascists or Antifa groups. They exist in small units called affinity groups, and they blend anarchist and communist views amongst themselves. And we've been dealing with this since Trump came back. The Black Cat Workers Collective is a Minneapolis-based Antifa affinity group that is committed to militant class struggle, community self-defense, and revolution. This includes disrupting rallies, digital campaigning, and other things. And here are some pictures of what they have created. On February 5th, a guy called Kyle Wagner was arrested in Minneapolis for doxing federal agents. When he was arrested, he wore a sweatshirt that said, "I'm Antifa" on the front. Then they found some other patches that confirm that as well. Here's one guy making identification in a lineup very easy. "I'm Antifa." Thank you, sir, for the label. DAM members worked closely with rapid response networks to identify and harass federal immigration and law enforcement officers, and they call themselves inherently militant. DAM also worked closely with other direct action groups and other affinity groups, many of them labeled and listed here. They almost exclusively communicate using Signal, which is an encrypted app that we're familiar with here. DAM members also hold meetings on a regular basis. They talk about operational security and OPSEC. They are organized and they are participating in direct actions against federal and local law enforcement. They deploy hard and soft blockades. One hard blockade was using vehicles, trailers, and hedgehogs, which is a static obstacle made of a metal angle beam, and other items to obstruct the roads so that the agents can't go to and fro. Here are a couple examples. A flipped trailer used by DAM during a blockade. So that looks like it's a trailer that has been knocked over on its side. Here's another metal apparatus, a hedgehog, and other debris that would impale a vehicle and be difficult to drive over unless you got out and moved it. Members of this soft blockade team, this is actually happening. wield homemade shields constructed from plastic, wood, and metal to physically resist the efforts of law enforcement and to aggressively wedge or break through teams of officers on foot. There's one example. That was back on March 1, blocking the streets. Here is Axon body camera showing them in action when a police officer goes up and tries to do their job. Members engage in commuting tactics, which include identifying, following, surveilling, harassing, confronting people. They use a Whipple Watch signal group, which facilitated the identification of federal immigration and law enforcement vehicles. They tracked license plate numbers. They tracked databases and followed the vehicles. How many times did somebody see the vehicle? What kind of activities were they engaged in? DAM members often also rely on information and intelligence that the other group members produce and then shove into the signal chat. Commuters also follow federal immigration enforcement officers and track locations, dispatchers sending other DAM members out there to impede. For example, on May 4th, a federal immigration officer left the Whipple building in a government-issued vehicle. One member, called Isaac Sant, drove a Hyundai Sonata and followed him from the Whipple building to Hudson, Wisconsin. Then deputies stopped him and identified him as the driver. On May 18th, another federal immigration officer left the Whipple building in his government-issued vehicle. Another member, Natasha Rackutz, drove a Honda Civic and followed the federal immigration officer from the Whipple building to another location and then brake-checked the officer. Okay, so is now harassing an officer, committing reckless driving and potential murder with a vehicular homicide, and sideswiped the officer's vehicle, causing a collision. Here is an image of this woman, Natasha Rackutz, ramming her Honda Civic into the federal immigration officer's government-issued vehicle right there. Natasha, using her vehicle as a weapon. Same thing on May 15th, another unindicted co-conspirator sent a message describing an agent's government-issued vehicle in another chat called the Whipple 3.0 chat. This unindicted co-conspirator, don't know why this person's unindicted, but maybe that's coming soon, described the government-issued vehicle as having a reflective hat and vest on the dash. In the same chat, an unindicted co-conspirator referred to a different government-issued vehicle in the area and said this vehicle was confirmed at WIP and hasn't been added to the database, so put them on. There were other alerts. They said, there's an ICE raid in progress right now. Dispatch deployed everybody. 28th and Bloomington, get out there. Ford F-150 was being reported. Someone said, I am not on scene, but get over there if you can. Other agents were actually performing their duties, conducting interviews. And another DAM member called William Morgan showed up on the scene and approached one of the agents and knocked the agent's notes right out of his hands. Morgan also kicked the government-issued vehicle, causing dents. Seen right here. Isaac was also present at the scene. There is a video, or an image rather, of the dent in the back of the police vehicle. Here's another woman, or dude. It said, below is an image of William Morgan. Maybe that's a dude. And Isaac Sant on the scene. Here's another member, also there. They trained other direct action and other affinity groups throughout the country to obstruct, prevent, delay, hinder, and impede. They often had trainings called the Anarchist Speaking Tour. On April 8th, DAM members Colum Robinet, William Morgan, and others took part in this. There were others, Isaac Sant, Cameron Kennedy, William Morgan, doing the same. A lot of mutual aid networks that were later characterized as resistance came from the George Floyd uprising, another scam where George Floyd and his death was exploited for the interests of social justice, even though he died because his heart failed. Kennedy discussed a January 23rd action at the building. More soft blockades there. One of the trailers was deployed and flipped, as we saw before. And the demonstration had multiple components to it. They also put out images of like D-Day, they said. We need images of like D-Day, like you saw in Saving Private Ryan when they stormed the beach. Those big metal impediments. They're like the metal X structures that you see. It digs into the road and it's going to stop them from progressing. Kennedy also explained, I was on deploy 2 or deploy 3. I had a 10-foot U-Haul box truck. He said, we're here from Minneapolis and we're here as part of a revolutionary, and he even says, of an insurrectionary organization. We're developing rapid response networks. I'm an anarchist. This is a revolutionary organization called Black Cat. Now they've been arrested. So the dispatcher was also in another relay chat, and you can see a lot of it is very repetitive, but they're deploying people out and keeping track and making databases of all of the federal agents. They emphasize a violent militant approach and are highly critical of nonviolent peaceful protests. One Black Cat Workers Collective cover Facebook page reads, "Welcome to Minneapolis," and has an image of Minneapolis on fire. That's great. Following the death of George Floyd. Other people posted on Facebook, this guy, Cameron Kennedy, says, "I swear I'm going to lose my effing minds if I see that if 3.5% of the population is committed to peaceful revolution, they win. BS. It's given far too many well-meaning people a fake idea of what it takes to win." And now folks are attacking the militant elements of the resistance and aiding the state because they think violence or even property destruction is counter-revolutionary. They could not be more wrong, said this person called Cameron Kennedy. "I want to make this as clear as I can. You will never win with nonviolence alone, ever. No one has. No one will. You absolutely need militants to win. I'm sorry the world is so cruel, but this is the real world, not an effing fairy tale." This is what Cameron Kennedy is posting on the internet. 53 likes right on Facebook or something. We are banned on Facebook, just to be ultra clear about that. We have no account on there because we've been banned, because we were people who said that the election was fraudulent and rigged, and they said, no, it's not, you can't speak anymore. But those apparently are running wild over there. On January 24th, Kyle Wagner also posted a video on Instagram while wearing a bulletproof vest. He said, "If you're caught up, it's time to suit up. Boots on the ground. My house is 4 blocks away." No, not talking about peaceful protest anymore. We're not talking about having polite conversations anymore. This is exactly what I said I was effing going to come and do, and we didn't effing go march effing something. Sorry, but welcome to America 2026. He's talking about being protected from literal Nazi gunmen that are killing people. This isn't a joke. Get your effing guns and stop these effing people. Here's this dude going nuts. So these defendants are all named in the indictment. We'll take a quick look at it. Isaac Almond Saint, we got Emmett Doyle, Cameron Kennedy, Callum Robinette, all of them with various names like Juliet K and Cam and Plotnikov and Isaac and Enrico and Tiny. Dude's probably huge. Brian. Chaos, Kyle. Gabriel Vanderwater, Hannah. Shotzi, Moon Bear, Mac, Doug, D-Money, Big Dog, Orf is also in the group. Sparky's in there. Willow and Willow Tree. And Anne Aran, all listed there by their real names. So this case was part of a broad investigation. President Trump signed a memorandum called 7 Initiative. They directed an interagency operation to go actually pick these people up, and that has now happened. So here's what the document looks like, just to hit the highlights. You can see a lot of it is just a full recount of all their communications back and forth. Count 1, conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer. This is a 95-page indictment brought out of the District of Minnesota, filed under seal, now released for our enjoyment. But you can see it lists all the 15 of them in here. Once again, explaining they're all members of DAM. They block, stop immigration raids, and impede federal officers. Bunch of subgroups that we listed previously. They explicitly call themselves Antifa and anti-fascists. So I'm waiting for, these are right-wingers to be the new narrative. They have dispatchers. They work with a bunch of other groups. And the purpose of the conspiracy was to prevent the enforcement of federal immigration law by force, intimidation, and threat. They oppose the authority of the United States. They prevent and hinder and delay the execution of the laws. They interfere with the peaceful deportation of illegal aliens. Remember how many times we heard the peaceful transfer of power? How could you undermine our democracy? They're impeding the peaceful deportation. And more purposes articulated. Now, the manner and the means, they coordinated. They used social media, text messages, encrypted apps. They prepared and executed plans, advocated and promoted direct action against ICE, utilized hard blockades and soft blockades at various buildings. They would wield homemade shields constructed from plastic, wood, and metal to physically resist the efforts of law enforcement and break through teams of officers on foot. They countered purported fascists, is their word. And it included a whole group of people. They had after-action reviews. They had dispatch. They coordinated with other groups. And they even practiced. They conducted dry runs of the entire plot. Had counter surveillance tactics. They informed members about activities. They had community self-defense, OPSEC, operational security, commuting plans, and training. They trained other groups. This is all metastasizing around the country. So in furtherance of all of this, and this is where the bulk of the indictment comes from, they articulate all of their communications for us. And so we'll just hit some of the highlights here. But on January 11th, one guy called Davis moderated an event. Back in January, a lot of activity in Minneapolis, as we covered extensively here. There was an emergency meeting on resistance to ICE. During the meetings, they broke out into following breakout rooms. You're going to go into, who wants to go into the hard blockade Zoom room? I do. Okay, you go to the hard blockade. Who wants to go into soft? Oh, I do. Okay, just raise your hand up. No, raise it. It's in Zoom. No, hit the setting. It's right there. Hit hand up. Mass commuting, civil disobedience, march groups, breaking them out. Various groups all communicating about this, multiple posts on Facebook. Then they broke into the FBI. Rioters broke into vehicles and stole several items, including FBI firearms out of a vehicle, January 14th. Then once they were successful, they reported back, ICE is gone. Sent other messages saying some folks raided an ICE vehicle for paperwork. And it's a full-blown attack. So here's another one. This is ICE pointing to a silver SUV. Somebody goes in, checks the database that they've created, which is very accurate. Bunch of messages go back and forth. There are announcements that are being posted. We're all in for 123. And if you have connections to the union, I guess the AFL-CIO and leadership, ask them to focus on Whipple and not downtown. Do you see what we're seeing here? AFL-CIO, this is such a massive union that they're interfacing with. And this better extend into the people who are funding all of this. Just like the Southern Poverty Law Center was funding the racists, we're also seeing that these groups are connected with much higher entities that have more power than they would have alone. So more communications. We're here planning an event, then coordinating to get to the event, posting flyers. And a lot of this, you can understand, is them just communicating back and forth. Where to go, how to get there, what to do when you get there. Kennedy purchased a trailer from Facebook Marketplace. Then he was going to flip that over. Organizing rapid response groups. They had signal groups with 1,000 people inside. 1,000 people inside these signal groups. People posted at federal buildings taking pictures of license plates. A lot of frustrating the peace policing and calling this paralyzing. Probably 8,000 to 10,000 people are volunteering to patrol their own neighborhoods. 8,000 to 10,000. So we want to create a culture of physically resisting. And then Renee was shot after she tried to run over a federal agent. Sending resources, sharing trucks, using Subarus, using U-Hauls, cargo trailers, sending other messages back and forth. So this goes on for about another 60 pages or so. And they're all explaining exactly what they're doing. And so let's fast forward to the actual charges and zoom in on those for further detail. And near the end of the document, again, they're still just posting on Facebook, nonviolent approaches, sending people out, dispatching here. Anybody interested in joining me to co-pilot? Other unindicted people jumping in. There's a renegades group following another officer who left the Whipple building. We learned about the Hyundai Sonata, stalking him from one location to another, watching White House posts and developing counter strategies. So they've got it all. They arrested, got warrants, got access to these signal groups, and it's all made its way into this indictment, showing exactly how they were orchestrating all of these attacks. Here's another message. Now in May, we fast forward to current times. ICE situation in South Minneapolis is resolved for now. Success. One vehicle left. The other one got a flat tire somehow and then pulled into the police station. someone said somehow, like they got a flat tire somehow, then included a smiley face and a devil emoji. Said couldn't drive within the law, couldn't change a flat without the law. So they're also cutting tires. People brake checking these federal agents and impeding federal operations. So then that's all in furtherance of the conspiracy. So overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy to impede federal agents. Then in count 2, we have one guy, Kyle Wagner, out of the 15, who was soliciting others to commit violent crimes. We have another one from Wagner, committing interstate threats, threatening to assault, kidnap, and murder federal law enforcement officers. Interstate stalking from this person, Isaac Sant. William Morgan, more stalking. Count 6, William Morgan, actual assault on a federal officer. Count 7, destruction of property. This guy kicked in a government vehicle, damaged the property to the amount of $1,000. Then this other woman who tried to ram that agent off the road, Natasha Rackets, assault on a federal officer with her weapon. And so now they're indicted and charged. And as a reaction to that, they go and they attack the federal courthouse because that's what they do. They're Antifa. And it's not wall-to-wall coverage, is it, on MS Now or on CNN? They don't want to talk about it at all. It's not an insurgency if they do it. It's social justice if it's the Democrat Party. So here's the U.S. attorney named Dan Rosen announcing these charges from these lunatics. And we'll keep our eye on these cases, see if they get any other people, but 1,000 people in the group and 2 people on the run, apparently. Hopefully they pick them up soon.
Today, a federal indictment was unsealed, charging 15 defendants with conspiracy to impede or injure federal officers and other charges related to efforts of 2 Minneapolis-based Antifa groups that violently opposed the enforcement of federal law in our state. The defendants are members and associates of Direct Action Minnesota. They are charged with conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer, solicitation to commit a crime of violence, interstate threats, interstate stalking, assault on a federal officer, and destruction of government property. Earlier this morning, agents of Homeland Security Investigations conducted a coordinated law enforcement operation culminating in the arrest of 12 of the 15 defendants. One defendant had already been in custody on other federal charges. 2 defendants remain fugitives at large. Today's charges and arrests reflect a broad federal effort to address organized, lawless behavior which seeks to disrupt the execution of federal law, endanger law enforcement, and importantly, endanger the very communities that these defendants falsely claim to be protecting.
All right, so we see action from the DOJ. We'll see if there is more when they capture the other 2 individuals who are still at large and see if any new indictments come down the line. But this, again, is happening out of Minnesota. And in Minnesota, the judges are also protecting these people, just like they did with Don Lemon, as they try to prevent his criminal charges from even happening at all. So we'll keep our eye on this one and hopefully have 2 new indictments to report on or 2 new arrests coming soon. Thanks for joining as we do. All right, we got some more updates on the Southern Poverty Law Center, and this one's fun because we now have a name. We now have a photo of the top Southern Poverty Law Center official who apparently was sleeping with a neo-Nazi. Her organization is supposed to be fighting extremists, not sleeping with them. But now she has been identified, courtesy of the New York Post, and we covered the second indictment, the superseding indictment against the SPLC, and we saw in there explicit allegations that they were not only paying for things like crosses to burn, paying for the fuel to burn, and transporting people to extremist rallies, propping up all of the racism that they claim to be fighting, defrauding donors in the process, but she was also sleeping with him and funneling to him $1.2 million to a literal neo-Nazi. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center has also been desperately trying to get out of their criminal charges after they were charged in 2 indictments, and they just lost big time. The judge out of Alabama issued an order saying your request, SPLC, is hereby denied. We'll come back to that, but here's the background on this woman with the name originally, until she's been outed, as employee number 2. She was somebody described as a person who would become the director of the SPLC intelligence project. And this is her photograph right here, named Heidi Byrick. They say, according to the Post, the employee number 2 named in the indictment. Now, also funneled $1.2 million to a group called the National Alliance. It's a group of white supremacists, but she said, I don't know how to quit you, and just jumped into bed with him. They funneled money to hate groups. They told the donors they were fighting the hate groups, but fighting is a dynamic term. Fighting can mean many things. Just ask a federal judge. It also describes how employee 2, that woman, wrote an article based on material that was stolen from them, the National Alliance, and then paid off an informant to take the blame for the robbery. Based on other details in the June 2nd superseding indictment, which we read the entire thing here, employee 2 is believed to be Heidi Byrick, a 58-year-old fascism expert who knows the fascists inside and out, top to bottom. Every nook and cranny. I know all the details about the fascists because I just got out of the bedroom with one, who was the director of national intelligence at the Alabama-based anti-extremism nonprofit from 2012 to 2019. The indictment says that she was very close to an informant known as F9, very close, who infiltrated the neo-Nazi organization called National Alliance. She was also in a romantic relationship with F9, the Nazi. During this relationship, she shared a house and 2 bank accounts with this Nazi. So between 2015 and 2021, approximately $140,000 of donor money flowed from the SPLC and was ultimately deposited into the joint bank accounts held by her and Byrick and the Nazi. So they were just probably sleeping with each other and ordering DoorDash is what it looks like. Or something. So we have a video of her, and wait till you hear her voice. This amounted to approximately 66% of all money ever deposited into their joint bank account. Then they used the donor money to pay the couple's personal living expenses and probably other freaky things. The indictment also claims that while getting paid by the SPLC, the unnamed informant was also raising money for the National Alliance and helping to carry out its extremist activities. Literally sleeping with the so-called enemy. But they're not enemies, they're on the same team. The indictment describes how a source broke into the National Alliance headquarters, stole 25 boxes of documents, then brought them over state lines into North Carolina before returning the originals back to them. Here's one of the founders. Don't think she was sleeping with that guy, but maybe, you never know. In 2015, she also wrote an article allegedly based on the stolen materials on her website called Hate Watch. That article is called Chaos at the Compound. It's like a disgusting romance novel. The indictment then describes how the Poverty Law Center tried to cover up who their informant was by paying a second informant $6,000 to take responsibility for the burglary. This woman, B. Rich, and SPLC did not respond to our request for comment. The National Alliance chairman, William White Williams, age 78, they contacted him, the Post, from his home in East Tennessee. Oh my goodness. He also had this to say about that woman. They called him, the New York Post, hey, William White Williams. What a name. William Williams, and he has a middle name called White, and he leads a National Alliance for white supremacy. They say, hi, William. We think we know who employee number 2 is. Do you have any information on Heidi B. Rich? He says, I knew it was that fat, ugly hog, Heidi. That's what he said. I knew it was that fat, ugly hog, Heidi B. Rich. Yeah, He also confirmed the details of the indictment match what happened to the group. He said, I think some of those cluckers want to get out of the movement and they went to the SPLC for help. But instead of helping them, the SPLC said, why don't you stay in the group and get paid? As we said, these movements would have already dissipated. If they didn't have support, they have funding. It comes from the SPLC. He added, of the informants, B. Rich, the fat ugly hog, had joined the SPLC in 1999 and became a director of the Intelligence Project in 2012. She left in 2019 as part of a massive shakeup when many top brass departed amid accusations of racism. So she's a bigot? Some of that intercourse rubbed off on her. And sexual harassment, with the group mainly being run by white people and black people were relegated to the lower ranks. B. Rich was not publicly implicated in any of those scandals. Now, the Alabama-based SPLC extremist group has been charged with wire fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, and for allegedly engaging in the active promotion of racist groups at the same time that they were denouncing the groups on their websites and charging their donors to go stop them. Little did the donors know they were paying for indictments of each other. Patel charged that far from using spies to dismantle this, they actually facilitated and embraced these extremist groups. They paid them $4 million, encouraged them and funded them to keep promoting their ideologies, gave them something to point out, to say, look at all this extremism, donate more money. They have amassed $800 million in doing so. And this is a photograph from somebody. By 2013, the National Alliance had effectively ceased to exist, but they couldn't allow that to happen. They needed the group to continue on. That year, a group chairman called Eric Glebe, a former boxer nicknamed the Aryan Barbarian, had sent a letter to followers saying the group was ending. Okay, we're done. Membership program that September, it's over. So don't pay any more dues. Membership had collapsed from 1,400 to around 20 in the process. It's all naturally dissipating. But if it goes away, then what are they going to scream about? What are they going to fundraise for? What's the FBI going to rally around to go attack Americans? Despite the internal chaos and decline, the following year then, the Southern Poverty Law Center began bolstering the group's public profile. They wrote nearly a dozen articles about the organization in order to elevate them and keep them on life support. Tax filings reviewed by the Post show that B. Rich, the hog, earned $190,000 a year in salary and benefits, and she was also getting some other benefits or punishment for that other guy. So is this her? No, this is Erica Glebe, Playboy model. Okay. Mystery surrounds the identity of who informant F9 is. That person got $1.2 million from the SPLC over 20 years, according to the indictment. Property records also reviewed by the Post reveal that during the years covered by the indictment, 2010 to 23, she also owned a vacation home in Georgia, an upscale mountain town in Atlanta. In addition to her Montgomery, Alabama residence, she was living lavish. Williams said he too, so they went to the guy who called her a fat hog, and he doesn't know who F9 is. However, he did note the group was somewhat paranoid, and there had been suspicions about various members who could be turncoat or potentially informants to a number of other groups and law enforcement. Members also say that B. Rich harassed the girlfriend of former NA media director called Kevin Strom. Maybe that's because she loved him and was going after his girlfriends like a lunatic. National Alliance was founded by a man named William Pierce, 1974, had 2,500 members. He died in 2002. He noted speculation, Williams did, about how the only other person who had access to the office was another dude called Robert Damaris. And so Williams is now spilling his guts. He's like, yeah, could be this guy, could be this guy. In a biography of Pierce, Damaris, now 79, is described as quiet, lonely, and childless, who ate sugar-frosted flakes alone at his kitchen table dinner and settled in with microwave TV dinners. They listed him, though, on their Hate Watch profile, noting that he is no ideologue and he's focused on administrative matters. Maybe that's her lover. Another source also questioned the group's former chairman, Glebe, who could have ended up being some kind of informant. said he had a messy and public divorce from the Playboy model that we just saw. After she published a blog, said, "I married a freak," accusing him of deviant sexual behavior involving Catholic schoolgirl uniforms. So that's her. She left in 2019. The Post can also reveal the source paid to take the fall for the document scam, referred to as F39, called him quirky, nearly deaf accountant who bounced around other hate groups before landing there at the National Alliance. Beerich also herself gave his name away in an article published on the website. For 5 months, Dillaway organized, examined, and in many cases copied key documents and data files. And his reputation in the white racist subculture was always conflicted as a quirky accountant. So maybe she was sleeping with him. So who knows? In April, the Post also exclusively unmasked other informants mentioned in the indictment, including a one-legged imperial wizard, and how the nonprofit's money was revitalizing a once defunct splinter group that would have died without the Southern Poverty Law Center money. So it is the epicenter of all of the so-called extremists that we had to live through over the last 4 years. Remember Joe Biden's FBI, Christopher Wray, and the rest of them, they came out repeatedly and they said there are more domestic, homegrown, violent, religious, racial, religious, whatever, violent extremists. Give us more money and we'll go after them. And then they used the Southern Poverty Law Center to say, who have you identified? And she says, the guy that I'm banging. So this person dug this clip up. Johnny St. Pete at John McCloy over on X. And here's a video of this fat, ugly hog, according to William White Williams, who is explaining all of her connections to this white supremacy material.
Hatred of black people is the driving force for America's hate movement. These are boots that are intended so that when you stomp on someone, the swastika will be left.
Oh my God. Heidi Byrick is leader of the Intelligence Project here at the Southern Poverty Law Center, a nonprofit anti-terror organization. She shows us memorabilia revealing some Ku Klux Klan history, boots with swastikas.
She's like, yeah, these are my boyfriends. I got them from his closet. They're like, what?
And boots with red laces, indicating Klan members who physically harmed someone, and other racist paraphernalia. In 2014, there were some 784 active hate groups. Byrick brings us up to date.
The Ku Klux Klan has declined over the years, in part due to lawsuits that you people here at the Southern Poverty Law Center have filed. Briefly tell us about how that came about.
We started filing lawsuits against the Klan in 1981 over a lynching of a young black man in Mobile. That was our first anti-Klan lawsuit.
Yeah, and then I went and had sex with him, is really what should be coming out of her mouth next. So a little bit of a puff piece for her. She was paying these neo-Nazis millions of dollars across the board, including at least $1.5 million to somebody with whom she had an affair, and then is lifted up by PBS NewsHour as some heroine, or maybe hero, of racial justice in America. So that's the organization that we are combating in court. They have now been charged and are being prosecuted. And the judge in the Southern Poverty Law Center case coming out of the Middle District of Alabama just issued a brutal blow to their efforts to dismiss their charges. Now, there was a battle back and forth over the grand jury proceedings. Everything that the left does and these defendants do is to try to escape culpability for their crimes. And so what they did in this case is they demanded records from the grand jury proceedings. Those are presumptively secret and not accessible. And so they said, we want them so we can go and show why the Trump DOJ is attacking us and targeting us, why this is a political prosecution, and why it should all be dismissed. So they filed a motion to disclose the transcript of the grand jury proceedings. The government DOJ opposed it. And now the judge said, SPLC, you hogs, your motion is denied. She gives us some background here in a short order. And she explains, on April 21st, 2026, the grand jury returned an indictment against the SPLC, charging it with a bunch of counts: wire fraud, false statements to a federally insured bank with their shell bank accounts, and conspiracy to commit concealment money laundering because they took money from donors. They said that that money was going to stop extremism. Actually, it was paying for them. On April 28th, they then filed this motion. They want disclosure of the materials. They say, yes, we know that grand juries are secret, but we think there's a reason to dismiss the indictment because of something that happened before the grand jury. Some might otherwise call that a fishing expedition to go see if they can just pull something out of the record. Now, they argue that disclosure is necessary to determine if the grand jury's probable cause determination was based on inaccurate or misleading misrepresentations. They rely heavily on public remarks by government officials to support their argument that this may have led to false statements in front of the grand jury and so let us in. Government DOJ from Trump says the SPLC has not carried its burden to show the requisite need to breach secrecy, and they say their request is too broad anyways. So the judge explains and says, listen, SPLC, grand jury proceedings are constitutionally prescribed. The process was thought so important to the administration of justice that it was included in the Bill of Rights. We have it in the Fifth Amendment. Now, the jury's job is simple, but it's broad. They have to investigate and determine if there is probable cause to believe that the accused individual, or in this case, organization, actually committed a crime. But this simple task carries grave import and requires the grand jury to ferret out crimes deserving of prosecution and also to screen out charges that don't warrant a case. The grand jury is the independent gatekeeper to ensure that criminal prosecutions are supported and should move forward. And the basic tenet of all of this is secrecy. Even the Supreme Court has long recognized that the functioning of our grand jury system depends upon the secrecy of grand jury proceedings. Otherwise, the elites might come in and meddle. If people know what's going on in grand jury proceedings, then they can put pressure on the indictment process. It's why secrecy is so important. U.S. Supreme Court has said so. The 11th Circuit has said so. That secrecy enshrouds the grand jury proceedings is vital. First of all, we have to prevent the escape of those whose indictment may be contemplated. If you know about an indictment coming down, you're gone. We also have to ensure the utmost freedom to the grand jury in its deliberations and to prevent them from being cajoled and attacked to prevent the indictment. We also want to prevent perjury or tampering of witnesses. We want to encourage free and untrammeled disclosures and protect the innocent. What if you're exonerated? We don't want your name smeared and dragged through the mud, so there's a bunch of reasons why it's secret. Now, authority to breach this is limited to very specific circumstances that the Southern Poverty Center is invoking. In addition to other grounds, the court has authority to authorize disclosure of these materials if they show there are proper grounds. And I have a lot of discretion to do that. Cites a bunch of cases here, Supreme Court case there, another Supreme Court case, 11th Circuit, all binding. The guidelines for determining when grand jury secrecy may be broken are well settled. If you want disclosure, you have to show that the material that you want is needed to avoid a possible injustice, that the need is greater than the need for secrecy, and that their request is structured to only cover the materials that are needed to make their point. And the burden on this is on the requesting party. The SPLC needs to go and make their case, and the weight behind showing this as a threshold matter is on with them. So with all of those rules articulated, the judge explains, the question before the court tests the time-honored tradition and the policy of protecting the integrity of these proceedings by upholding secrecy. And now they have not shown a particularized need for it at all. They rely on the exception, saying that there may be misconduct in there. But you're not entitled to that simply because you say it could have happened. We have extensive discretion here. And the need must be rooted in a specific difficulty particularly applicable to this case. You don't just get to go in and say, I think a prosecutor did a bad, because every defendant would do that. SPLC arguments are not so rooted in an actual claim. Now, as evidence indicative of the risk of prosecutorial misconduct, they reference post-indictment media statements. Trump came out and said some things, also mentioned a statement by Kash Patel during a TV appearance. The thrust of the Poverty Center's argument, however, focuses on Todd Blanche. Todd came out after the indictment was handed down and said, there's no allegation or information in the indictment that suggests that the Southern Poverty Law Center shared that information with law enforcement. Their big excuse was, no, we're like our own FBI. We're placing informants. We're allowed to do these things and defraud our donors to pay white nationalist organizations that really don't exist anymore, but for their own funding. The acting AG has since walked back this statement, saying it is true that over the years, they have selectively shared info with law enforcement. That's well documented. There's no dispute there, but they aren't charged with any of that conduct. They also say the indictment's language about the Unite the Right rally demonstrates the grand jury may have been misled. They take issue with statements in the indictment related to the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, the Fine People hoax scam, and the omission of their cooperation with law enforcement about that event. They say that they did provide law enforcement with an event alert warning, and they provided identifying information about individuals who were likely to attend and instigate violence during that event. And together, they argue that the post-indictment media statements and factual characterizations create more speculation that there was prosecutorial misconduct. But they still, in spite of those statements, they don't share anything with any particularity, italicized, any reason to believe that the prosecutors, the people who actually presented to the case, to the grand jury, the case, that they engaged in any of the irregularity, any of the politicization, or any of these remarks. They say, yeah, but the administration officials did. And so it must have trickled down to the prosecutors who presented the matter to the grand jury. But Judge writes, there is nothing in the record that suggests the prosecutors knowingly presented false factual testimony to the grand jury at all. Here, the public record of media comments by people who were not present during the presentation of the case fails to carry the burden of a particularized need. And their disagreement with the facts alleged in the charging document also doesn't result in a conclusion beyond conjecture that the prosecutors knowingly presented false testimony to the grand jury or engaged in any other misconduct before the grand jury at all. Instead, assuming the fact is relevant, that they did actually share information with law enforcement, that may be a matter for the fact finder, in this case, the jury, to actually ferret out and determine its weight, whether that contributes to their innocence or to their guilt. This dispute over the facts and over how the facts are characterized in the media doesn't indicate anything related to prosecutorial misconduct, not before the grand jury. And so you fail to show a need for these materials and you lose. Now, their other argument is that there were flaws in the indictment, saying the grand jury was misled. She says, well, you were arguing about the original indictment. Guess what? You have got hit with a superseding indictment. That's copy draft number 2. They went back to the grand jury. They presented them more information. They said, yep, indict them. So any flaws that you identified in the indictment are also now moot. And moreover, the SPLC has filed a motion to dismiss since the filing of the motion for grand jury materials, and they highlighted that grand jury material is not even necessary to move for a dismissal. So they seek dismissal on the grounds of vindictive prosecution based primarily on matters leading to the pursuit of an indictment because Trump talked about it. The motion to dismiss, though, is not based on what was presented to the grand juries. And so therefore, SPLC's speculation about prosecutorial misstatements in instructing the grand jury on the law for the original indictment cannot, on this record before us now, demonstrate a basis to pierce the grand jury secrecy. And finally, they rely on the Comey case to argue for disclosure. But James Comey and the facts in that case, unlike the case now before us, are different. In Comey, the record established a slew of factual findings of possible prosecutorial misconduct. The grand jury disclosure was first ordered because of a dispute over a filter protocol to govern documents that were potentially privileged. Those documents, which the government sought to use in 25, were seized in 19 and 20, pursuant to other warrants in a different district and different investigation. The defense in Comey's case argued the documents the government wanted to review and use were improperly retained after a prior case and investigation had already ended. So they used an old search warrant to get materials in the old case that they then parlayed into the new case, and those were being improperly used. And by doing that, they already accessed material that they were not supposed to access. So following a hearing before that judge, the court ordered the disclosure of, among other things, the materials. After the government appealed the judge's order, the court held another hearing, and then the judge reviewed the docs in camera in chambers. Based on that record, then, the court made findings as to the prospect the government misconduct may have tainted the proceedings, and then that warranted the disclosure. So there, the record established other things, that the government seized information from Comey's lawyers pursuant to warrants in a different case. And so they failed to include him in the process to identify attorney-client privilege, which is different than this. The government there also used the information beyond the scope of the original warrant. They got 2025 data. They didn't look at attorney-client privilege. And despite knowledge that this information may have attorney-client privilege, they allowed an FBI agent who was exposed to the material to testify before the grand jury. Only after making full use of the information did the government seek court approval of a filter protocol. And that review revealed two statements by the prosecutor that may be fundamental misstatements of law as it relates to Comey's right not to testify. There were also two inconsistent signed indictments. The prosecutor's timeline had discrepancies. All of that was way more problematic than anything that we have here. So the SPLC's reliance on Comey to argue for grand jury disclosure based on prosecutorial misconduct is misplaced. The facts now before the court are not like Comey's case at all. The record here establishes media comments, whether false, misinformed, or misguided, were made by government officials who were not presenting the case to the grand jury. Speculation that they made similar statements is conjecture. And they're also moot because you got hit with a new indictment. So without something more in the record to support speculation of misconduct before the Middle District of Alabama, SPLC, there is no basis to pierce this secrecy. You have failed to carry your burden to show that circumstances here created certain difficulties that warrant the piercing of the secrecy. And so now you lose. Because the court finds no particularized need for the material to avoid a possible injustice, there is no weight to balance against grand jury secrecy, and therefore the grand jury secrecy remains paramount. And so for these foregoing reasons, the court finds the SPLC has failed to meet its burden to show a need for these materials, and thus the motion is denied. Signed by Kelly Fitzgerald Pate, U.S. Magistrate Judge, fresh out of the oven today. And that's good news. They'll continue to fight this thing. The case is clearly distinguishable from the James Comey matter. We've got other deadlines now bumped out to June 22 on unopposed requests to file replies in the SPLC motion to dismiss. So there's a motion to dismiss that is still pending. But based Mike Lee was out here talking about the SPLC. And here is what he had to say about all of this on with Fox.
To discuss is Utah Senator Mike Lee. Senator Lee, when I look at this and I hear these explosive allegations like reimbursement for cross-burning, that happened too at SPLC. And then I look at the donors, George and Amal Clooney, Apple, JP Morgan. I asked our brain room to look to see if any of these donors have said anything, and it's just been crickets.
You know, Kaylee, once you see this, you can't unsee it. The whole thing looks like a truckload of strawberries dumped on a ski slope. It stands out. These folks are like arsonists who are masquerading as firefighters. They were supposed to be the anti-hate group. They were fomenting hate. They were funding violence. They've funded and declared groups like, Christian groups, conservative groups, the various family groups that inspired violence in many instances. So they've got a lot to answer for. And I'm glad that they're under investigation because they have earned it.
Here to discuss
100% right. Thank you, based Mike Lee. And they were also apparently sleeping with the neo-Nazis against whom they were fighting. And we now know who that lady is. You can see a photograph of her right here. Yikes. Top SPLC official Heidi B. Rich, now busted. We'll see if she has anything to say in response to these allegations, but we doubt it. We'll keep our eye on this case, see what the DOJ and the SPLC have to do as this continues to be duked out in litigation moving forward. Thanks for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, we got one more update, my friends, and then we'll hear from you. This also was a very curious one. A prosecutor just got obliterated by the state Supreme Court. This is the Philadelphia DA's office, and this is a guy called Larry Krasner. And the Inquirer out there in Philadelphia said that the Supreme Court came down and blasted him for misleading judges, aka lying, and for essentially conceding certain points when criminal defendants would say, you have to release me, you have to dismiss my murder charges. He would say, well, you make a good point, so I'll concede the point and let you win and then let you go. This was so bad that the state Supreme Court came back down and is now forcing him to go check in with the state attorney general's office to say, now you're on probation. Now you need to go talk to your superior and get their assistance and permission and guidance before you just let murderers walk free. This is another big fanny type DA, wokeified, in favor of defendants and murderers and convicts much more than he is in favor of his own constituency. The same guy who was saying they're going to arrest federal agents and then target President Trump. And so now he's getting blasted. Even the Inquirer calls it a forceful and scolding opinion, and it's a big one. The state's high court said that his office violated its duty of candor, which is lying, and ruled that the state's AG's office must now review the cases that his office is working on and seeking to overturn because he's releasing too many murderers. Very forceful, very scolding. And said that you also lied. You submitted false statements when asking a judge to vacate a murder conviction. Justice Kevin Doherty wrote what we're going to look at here in a minute. He said that this prosecutor's pattern of misleading judges, aka lying, in seeking to overturn murder convictions is so troubling. It is so recurrent that going forward, before his office seeks that relief to let the murderers go free, judges must notify the state's AG's office and allow it to review the case because this guy cannot be allowed to run his own office. This is one of the most scathing rebukes yet of his efforts to revisit old convictions. There is a bunch of scrutiny now enveloping his office, and he's handling these things called post-conviction cases, letting the murderers go. So there was a great thread posted by this guy, Abby Cambly, over on X. He's a partner at a big law firm, former Trump 47 senior DOJ official, deputy AG, federal prosecutor. He's explaining just how bad this is. He says, I can say that in my 13 plus years of practice, I have never seen anything like this. From this court's opinion, and keep in mind, this is about letting murderers out of jail, quote, again and again, the DA's office has made unreliable concessions, unsupported by the facts and the law. And when conceding relief, agreeing with the defendants, this prosecutor has repeatedly lacked the candor to the court, misrepresented facts, failed to conduct adequate investigations, and inexplicably dodged necessary evidentiary hearings. Someone would say, I found a witness who exonerates me, so I'm innocent. He'd say, oh, okay, great. So you're innocent. You're free. Do you want to bring that guy in and question him? No. Do you want to interview him? No. Do you want to go investigate and find other corroborating witnesses? No. Do you want to have an evidentiary hearing to challenge this? No. We just buy it and let you go. He says, first, the issue is the state post-conviction relief statute. So once somebody is convicted, you have other mechanisms to go back and attack your conviction. For example, if you're convicted of a DUI and you go to trial and lose, and then you learn that maybe that police officer was in there adding alcohol to your test vial, then that might be an unknown fact you didn't know during the actual proceedings. Couldn't use that in trial. And so the law says once you discover these things, you can reopen the case, essentially. Allows certain defendants who are wrongfully convicted to get relief. Now, what happened here is the Philly DA's office under Larry Krasner abused it by repeatedly making misrepresentations to the court. Now, it's also important to note that it's the court, not the prosecutor, that ultimately decides whether relief is granted, but the courts, they can't conduct their own investigations. They're not the prosecutor. So they rely on a prosecutor to go in and do their own due diligence and then make their recommendations to the court. It's part of the beauty of the adversarial process. That duty to administer justice does not only apply to treating the defendant fairly, but to actually make sure that people are being held accountable for their crimes. Krasner's office was abusing post-conviction remedies to let off murderers. No joke, it's life and death. So what did the court do? They concluded that the DA's office was no longer trustworthy to handle the post-conviction relief process, but they said, we can't do it anyways. So it has to go to the state AG. This is a social justice prosecutor, lying and misrepresenting, failing to do his duty in order to release convicted murderers. It's a major problem with this office. He's also talked about arresting ICE for doing their jobs, and now he's in big trouble. So here is what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court had to say out of the Supreme Court. And I believe it was a 5-2 decision. And these are, many of them, Democrat judges. So Justice Doherty says, the prosecutor does not decide whether a defendant is entitled to relief under the statute. This is the exclusive province of the court. But nonetheless, while not dispositive, a prosecutor's concession of relief, saying, yeah, let him out, is undoubtedly influential. We give them great weight. But when the prosecutor sides with the defendant, there is generally no adversarial testing of the defendant's entitlement to relief because they all say, I'm innocent. The prosecutor should take the opposite opinion, and then the truth is ironed out. The court is left with the benefit of that opposing advocacy, including the presentation of counter arguments, exposure of law and fact. But this court's review is limited. If relevant evidence is withheld from the court, we can't see it. The court is not permitted to conduct its own independent investigation for these materials, and we're not equipped to do so in any case anyways. So for these reasons, an unreliable prosecutorial concession substantially risks the erroneous grant of relief by the court. Now, this is not to say a prosecutor should never concede relief and let him out, but they bear the responsibility of a minister of justice and not simply that of an advocate. And here, a prosecutor is duty-bound to confess error when it's called for under facts and law. But the proviso is critical. When relief is not dictated by the record and the law, but merely advocated for personal, political, ideological, policy reasons, or other non-legal reasons, a prosecutor's concession does not minister justice. It facilitates injustice. Here, in the case reviewed by this jurisdiction, they conceded that this guy called LeVar Brown, a convicted murderer sentenced to death for a separate murder, was entitled to a new trial based on a new untimely claim under the law. Upon careful review, we conclude that the DA's concession was not reliable at all. And more specifically, we find that this state prosecutor conceded relief and said, yep, let him out, although none was warranted based on the existing record. They violated their duty of candor to the court They withheld material evidence from the court, covered it up. They opposed efforts by the amici to gain access to this evidence. Other people want to come in and say, hey, this guy did it. They submitted a false stipulation of fact, lied, and misstated facts in its pleadings. They failed to conduct a reasonable investigation, and they opposed a required evidentiary hearing. So the predictable result was the erroneous grant of a new trial. So this guy actually wins because the DA's office just lays down. These circumstances, troubling as they are, would not warrant a remedy beyond the reversal of the court order if it were only confined to one case. Bad things happen in independent cases, you just reverse that. Oop, that was an error, reverse it. But this is not limited. Since 2018, Larry Krasner has conceded relief well over 100 times, mostly in murder cases like this one. 100 murderers getting a second shot, many of them likely going free. There have been numerous instances of untrustworthy concessions, lack of candor, misrepresentation of fact, lack of adequate investigation, and the avoidance of hearings. And the problems are poised to continue. There are apparently more than 1,000 cases yet to be reviewed by the Conviction Integrity Unit, and Larry vigorously defends its checkered concession program as necessary to correct the past misdeeds by prior administration. So this is active. This is ongoing. This is problematic, and it requires broader remedial actions to promote just outcomes accordingly. In addition to reversing the court's grant of a new trial here, that guy is not getting a new trial. We also hold that in any case like this, in which Larry Krasner concedes relief, the court shall grant, you're now going to the principal's office, you shall go to the office of the AG. So from a local level county DA up into the state attorney general's office. You don't want to fight for this and do your job, then you don't get to do it. We're just going to give it back up to the state AG. And notice them, so they have the right to intervene before the ruling on the concession. So in other words, the entire DA's office is unreliable in these cases, and you have to take it up to a superior. Go talk to the manager. Regardless of the OAG's position on the concession, if it chooses to intervene, it may well agree. It may say, oh yeah, Larry's right. Concession is appropriate. Its independent assessment and participation will now enhance the reliability of the proceedings and the court's ultimate decision. So it's a 109-page decision. They walk us through here for like 60 pages, all of the facts of the underlying case. It's a murder case. They explain it in good detail on exactly what happened. Jamar was working at a Rite Aid, got a brother, $50,000 in cash at the store. Someone goes and commits a murder. So they walk us through all of that. Now let's fast forward because they're reversing this. They're just articulating why they need to reverse all of this. And let me share with you something that I had highlighted previously before we were doing the show. Once they go through that analysis, they then say, here, the Office of the Attorney General also agrees. They say multiple recent concessions by the DA, once examined under the adversarial process, have proven unreliable. They cite also federal habeas proceedings of Philadelphia murder defendants called this guy, Robert Wharton, Javier Artachi, Kevin Johnson, Razian Malone, as well as Brown's unsuccessful appeal in a different case. In addition to these, the state AG says that since January 18, when DA Krasner took office, they have conceded error and relief has been granted in 115 cases. And the AG is concerned about this. He says that they maintain that while virtually all the cases have involved disputable factual issues, almost none of them have been resolved through evidentiary hearings, but rather through naked concessions by the prosecution or joint stipulations. He says that many of the cases on its list have been repeatedly shuttled back and forth between state and federal court, and says this juggling between these forums even resulted in a public censure of one prosecutor. He says that in all but one of the 115 concessions, The DA has not retried the defendant, but instead has dismissed the charges or negotiated a plea, even a no contest plea, to reduced charges. So once relief is granted, he says, I'm not going to go prosecute you again. For what? Lets them go. 115, 114, walking free, give or take. So in light of this, he says, I want to be involved. They said the court should order the prosecution to make available to them everything in the police and the prosecution files. And in their view, the court should require an evidentiary hearing before granting anything. And says, even in this case, this is just like the others. They say that there is actual evidence demonstrating that this person called Van implicated Page. Brown and the DA presented only a joint stipulation. They say that Van's undisclosed statement belies the allegation that Van actually identified Page. And other detectives have provided declarations that Van never identified Page. They fault Brown and the DA for never even attempting to interview the detective. He died in 22. Or Van, who died in 18. And they say, even assuming that Van incriminated Page, and so like, I didn't murder the guy, somebody else did, this fact would not have been material in light of the other circumstances impeaching that person's credibility, including Lyon's testimony and corroborating Van's account of the murder. And I gotta say, man, I wonder if these defense attorneys out there know about this. Like, it only takes a couple of these. Once defense attorneys find a little angle on a way to get relief in criminal law, they talk, they share it. They say, oh yeah, all you have to do is go into the, unless you don't want to ruin it for yourself, because like you think that this judge, if too many people know about it, then you can't get access to it. But if you have a mechanism, you go into this judge, you do a little procedural magic trick, and then the judge grants you relief or gives you a benefit that you don't get in other courts, you share that information. So what happens if one defense attorney says, all you got to do is find a witness who says, your guy didn't do it, some other guy did it. File a petition for post-conviction relief. You're in Krasner's jurisdiction. He's not going to fight you. Just file a bunch of paperwork. This guy doesn't want to work at all. Make a case. Then enter a factual stipulation. He'll agree to it. And he'll let your guy out. I would imagine they know about it and they're all doing it, which is why we've got 115 of them. So then that increases his caseload because he's granting all of these and he doesn't want to retry them. So murderers are walking free. It's insane. So long story short, the judge came down and said, you're a terrible person and a terrible prosecutor. So your job now is to communicate with your superior, who is now the state attorney general. DA insists, though, that its many concessions over the past 8 years, in mostly murder cases, simply demonstrated that he embraced his responsibility as a minister of justice. We endorse in the strongest possible terms a prosecutor's duty to minister justice, says the court. But lest there be any uncertainty on this score, we reiterate that a prosecutor is also ethically obliged to concede relief when, but only when, the facts and the law support it. We also emphasize that our court decision is not intended to counteract their policy choices. He is free to exercise his discretion on behalf of his office, but the means for achieving those ends cannot transgress the bounds of the law. And what we have seen in this case and too many others is the opposite of justice. Again and again, the DA has made unreliable concessions, unsupported by facts and law. When conceding these reliefs, the DA has repeatedly lacked candor to the court, misrepresented facts, failed to conduct adequate investigations, and inexplicably dodged the actual evidentiary hearings necessary to ferret out the truth of the matter. So the court has a duty as well to minister justice. And our principal obligations are to conscientiously guard the fairness and the probity of the judicial process and the dignity, integrity, and authority of the judicial system for all those in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Our duty to safeguard justice compels us to order that in all cases where Larry Krasner concedes relief, the court shall afford the state attorney general notice and the opportunity to intervene before a ruling comes down. And so the order of the court is now reversed, and the matter is remanded to the court for further proceedings consistent with this opinion. We've got other concurring opinions and a dissenting opinion in which the Chief Justice joins. So 2 dissenters, but the majority of the court blasts this dude because he is one bad hombre. There's the court right there. And he apparently responded to this. He said in a video statement that the high court's ruling undermines the value of a vote in Philly. Then in his video, he shared pictures of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and said that he compared the pushback of his justice reform efforts to other social justice movements. That's interesting. Did MLK release murderers? Is that the whole thesis of the civil rights movement? First, they ignore you. He said, we're past it. Then they laugh at you. We're past that. Then they fight you. And we've been fighting this for 8.5 years. So now he's like Rosa Parks? Okay. So murderers going free, not so long anymore, because this guy has now been slapped down aggressively by the Supreme Court. And hopefully the state AG can ferret out all of the other problems that are happening here. But this is what justice looks like. And it's only for certain issues and certain groups of people who he thinks have been wronged by historical prosecutions, you know, involving killing people. So Larry Krasner slapped down, Supreme Court stepping in, saying no more of this nonsense. But these are the types of prosecutors that we're dealing with. They'll literally let murderers go free rather than do their jobs. So we'll keep our eye on this one and other corrupt prosecutors throughout America. Thanks for joining us and subscribing as we do. All right, friends, it's been a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining us. Quick programming note. Tomorrow morning, I think we'll have some big Supreme Court oral arguments. I'm sorry, decisions getting released. There are no more oral arguments for this term. We are getting the decisions that are being released from the preceding oral arguments. We're waiting on 2 big ones, including birthright citizenship and the voting rights election deadline case. And there are other good ones that are percolating out there. So we're planning on coming back tomorrow live to cover those Supreme Court decisions. We've got, I think, just a couple of Thursdays left in the rest of June. They should all be dropping soon. So if you'd like to join us for that live, we'll be here 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow when the decisions drop. There are 20 opinions left, says Quell. That's a lot. John says only one of them matter. So we're waiting on birthright, really is the big one. And we want to be ready to go in case that puppy drops. So we're planning on that tomorrow, 10 a.m. Come join us live here, wherever you're watching it, and we'll see what drops. If there are no big ones, we'll look at the small ones. We'll see what those look like and make sure we are up to speed and then see and keep count on what is left and what has not come down yet. But we might have a big one tomorrow. We'll see. So come join us, 10 a.m. tomorrow, SCOTUS Business on a Thursday. But now, my friends, if you're just getting here, it's been a beautiful stream. We talked about some interesting topics today, looked at the Antifa goons attacking federal courthouses. These people now arrested, and there were multiple attacks in a courthouse in Minneapolis. Looked at some video, looked at some bear spray or pepper spray, and saw some other reaction to that. Then we looked at the actual charging document and the indictments that dropped, reviewed some various photos, and saw exactly how these people orchestrate and coordinate all of their insurgent activities. Read through the indictment out of Minnesota and heard from the U.S. prosecutor who brought the charges. Then we talked about this woman, Heidi B. Rich, who was making B. Rich with a neo-Nazi, allegedly. New York Post identifying her as employee number 2, saying that she paid him through her organization over $1 million. And then went on PBS and showed PBS her boyfriend's Nazi boots. So that was fun. Then we saw that the SPLC lost a big filing. They wanted to get their hands on the grand jury transcripts and the internal secret proceedings to say this is a political attack, and they have lost that. The judge ordering their motion denied. The motion to dismiss battle will continue on, and we're keeping our eye on this case. Next replies due June 22nd. We heard from Based Mike Lee, then turned our attention to the corrupt scumbag Larry Krasner, the DA out of Philadelphia, who was doing everything he possibly could to not fight against convicted murderers. People would just say, oh, I've identified somebody who says I'm innocent. He says, great, you're free. Lets them go. Now he's been slapped down by a very liberal Supreme Court in the state of Pennsylvania saying, you're no longer even in charge of this anymore. Do your job, that's fine. But we're going to put Big Brother over your shoulder to double check your homework because you're a bad person who lied to the court, didn't do what was required of you under your oath of office as a prosecutor, and you're busted. So that's what's happening in Philadelphia. And yeah, there are Nazi boots right there. That's her boyfriend's Nazi boots. Like, where'd you get these? She's like, I got them from his confiscated from a neo-Nazi. Those are the Nazi boots you can see. So you wonder how she had access to all this memorabilia. She's like, that's on my coffee table. It's where I got it. What's the problem? Then they went and got doubles together. All right, so now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. Let's see what you say about all of this. It's a lovely and beautiful Wednesday. I hope that your week has been beautiful. It's all downhill from here. We got some donos, my friends. Thank you for the donos and for the great comments that are here. Let's see who's joining us on the day. Milo, we got some new membos from Biology. Viva rated the stream. Shout out to Viva. Hey, hilarious. Yeah, Sharpie guy. We were talking about home prices this morning on the member stream. I paid $11,000 for my first home. This morning we had a great members only stream. We talked about that disgusting, horrific gang report that came out of the UK. Looked at some of the details in that. We'll have a segment on that coming out later. But Sharpie guy. The payment was $111 monthly. The term was 5 years. Same house in Denver is now $600K. That's crazy. Obama's presidential building, which looks like a giant porta potty, is apparently coming together now. And we weren't sure exactly what they were going to publish on the side in the letters, but it looks like they settled on Quality Leering Center, which is a perfect and symbolic message from the Obamas, especially Michelle, who may or may not be a man. Viva Las Vegas in the house. Thank you for rating our stream. Viva Las Vegas, man. We love Viva. We haven't talked to Viva in a while, so we'll have to connect with him soon. Shout out to Viva. He's amazing. He's also on Rumble and on YouTube, talking to amazing people. Biology always wins. What's up? 5 membos coming in. Thank you, Biology. We got 90% in the house. Wanda, Hazley, also welcome. Matt G, great to see you. Title Pro, nice to have you. Star Spangled Shimmer, all joining us. Courtesy of Biology always wins. We're excited to see you. Grab the members only stream from this morning. We had a good time. Hey, Milo Phone Bill. Here's the Seattle area independent journalist Jonathan Cho infiltrated Antifa's anarchist book fairs in Seattle on YouTube. He exposes how the group recruits, spreads propaganda, and even teaches new tactics under the guise of activism. He's shown how Antifa exploits the homeless and is able to stage confrontations. Jonathan also has shown the hidden link between Antifa and homelessness nonprofits. Wow, just like California. Yeah, homeless. Just say I'm a homeless person. I need funding. Oh, we don't like homeless people. How much do you need? I saw some reporting in California that it's like 6 figures per homeless person. Like you take the total budget for solving homelessness, divide that by the total number of homeless, it's 6 figures. Like you could just give them all 6 figures. But they don't, because that money goes into their own pockets. Thank you for that one. Looks like a good one. Antifa's new uniform and tactics, Jonathan Cho. Nice. Hey, thank you, Mr. Penguin. Elk Plow says I'll be clear, Minnesota was an insurrection and sedition was also there. The governor allowed it to happen, $4 billion in damages, multiple deaths. It should have been stopped then. From Elk Plow. Yeah, I think many people agreed with you on that one. Me too. We were watching it. I think, Greg Bovino and those guys are pretty right about this, that it should have just been like the same level of force and energy and effort that we saw after January 6th, because it was an actual insurrection. It was a multi-day, prolonged, multi-month insurgency that was developing, was being funded, that was actually obstructing, that was actually causing deaths, and actually trying to prevent the operation of federal law, not just peaceful protesting that happened to turn violent when people got shot in the mouth because of now CIA agents on the upper terrace on the Capitol building, and then also deviated by fake pipe bombs. But it didn't happen. I think there was just too much political blowback. To me, it seemed like a victory for them. They pushed ICE back out. And now the insurgency continues to grow. They think that they won. Although Kristi Noem got the boot, Greg Bovino got the boot, then we got Mullen, then we got Tom Homan. So a different strategy. I think some of that was political. They had to do that before the midterms and kind of calm everything down because 2 Americans got killed after they attacked federal agents. So it worked, in other words. They sent those people out to cause a ruckus and wanted to exploit their deaths. They don't care about their deaths. So you're dead. Great. That's good for our cause. Go get someone else killed. Great. We'll take advantage of it. And it's all been exploited. Thank you, Elk Plow. Hey, Milo, Jonathan Cho, he's also at the Epoch Times, premiered a new video on American thought leaders. He laid bare the overlap between Antifa and the institutions that are supposed to be helping out the homeless, like the homeless industrial complex. Said the homeless are being used by keeping the tent encampments on America's street to show that capitalism isn't working and money is flowing to the NGOs. That's interesting, yeah. If you clean up the tents, then it looks like there's no homeless. If you see the tents, then people are going to want to fund homeless prevention because they think the money will actually be going towards removing the homeless, not creating more homeless. Very interesting. One old guy. It was a 2-headed double funneling. He gave her the funnel and she funneled him some money. Just a gigolo, and everybody knows the role I'm playing. Well, yeah, that's interesting. Maybe there would have not been any actual intercourse if he wasn't getting paid $1 million. He's like, no. He's like, no way. I got to do what with who? No. We'll give you $1 million. He's like, well, make it $1 million too. All right. Hi, baby. Elk Plow, what's up? Welcome aboard. Gerald, welcome. We had a great members only stream this morning. Check it out. Get past the algae talk and then it gets better. Thank you, Elk Plow. Thank you, Gerald Wiss. Good to see you. Thanks for signing up and supporting us here today. One old guy, she filmed her news media puff piece and went home to return the boots and funnel some money. Yeah, so I don't know where those boots came from. Yeah, good question. K Bean says, ask Graham Plattner. Maybe he knows. Yeah, I don't know. Where'd they come from? Very interesting. And she had access to those. Does she have a whole basement filled with Nazi memorabilia between her and her lover? I don't know. Thank you, one old guy, for the always generous donations. King of Biltong. Hey, turn up the flavor with Peri Peri Biltong. Mild heat, big flavor. Over 50% protein to keep you going. Try the full Peri Peri range at BiltongUSA.com. Code Robert and you'll save 10% off. And you'll feel healthy and delicious to boot. Bodie, Gavin Newsom is trying to get all the evidence against him through FOIA. I saw that. Yeah, he seems extra nervous out there. And even people, I've seen some clips from CNN and other news entities are saying this is not weaponization there, bucko. This started back under Joe Biden and other various individuals who were already looking into him, including local U.S. attorneys. Trump didn't go and draft the indictment. Neither did Todd Blanche. Thank you, Bodie. Hey, B-Job Secure says 10 years ago, the corrupt prosecutor would have been on all news. Today, it's only on Watching the Watchers. It's true. That would be a national story. A local prosecutor is releasing convicted murderers. We were talking about this morning about the Pakistani gangs who were raping white girls all over England. And we were contemplating you know, we got those similar groups here. We know that, for example, the Somalis are stealing and defrauding America financially. Are they also doing the same things that the Pakistani gangs are? And then you'd say, well, it's the English politicians. It's the UK politicians. It's Keir Starmer who is turning his cheek to 13,000 people, giving them warnings and letting them off the hook on these things. Letting them go after there's credible evidence that they were actually doing these things. He let them go, according to the report. Then you come here and you say it's not happening here. Yes, it is. This dude's letting murderers out. I don't know if any of them assaulted women. I would imagine some of them did. Letting them go because of his social justice bona fides. Then he says, I am like Rosa Parks and MLK, and releases a stupid video about that. So it is happening here. Might be different scale, might be different crimes, might be different networking and organization, but we have traitors inside our own country who are letting the criminals run free. So it's happening. We got to continue to cover it. I know it's, you know, some of this is heavy stuff, but thank you for joining as we continue our oversight. Holly, what's going on? Holly R, nice to see you. Thank you for being a member and for the dono. I remember years ago, labs screwed up DNA and all convictions prior were overturned for a retrial. Is this something in the wind for Pennsylvania? I mean, not that I've seen. So this wasn't, you know, a DNA problem, an evidentiary problem, a forensic problem. We had a big era in Arizona where the city of Scottsdale was like covering up their crime lab results for DUIs, not DNA. This happens a lot, actually. DUI testing is complicated, like really complicated, and they screw it up. And so then they cover up the screw up. And you see these stories emerge like every 3 to 5 years. There's a story like 10,000 DUIs or 1,000 DUIs or 5,000 criminal DUIs were all dismissed because they actually did something illegal or very improper, or the scientific reliability, the accuracy, or the precision of the results were both problematic. So they had to release the convictions. But in this case, there wasn't anything legitimate to even hang their hat on. It's like they weren't even trying. They were just saying, you make the claim, defense attorney comes in and says, you screwed up. He says, fine. It's not like a full-blown onslaught. Like these DUI cases that I'm talking about, it usually takes years. Has to work its way up to court. Prosecutors are fighting tooth and nail for every single conviction that they got. They do not want to say and acquiesce and say that we're going to dismiss those. This guy is just saying, yeah, oh, someone else said you didn't do it? Great, you're free. And man, Holly, we're going to send some love and some prayer and some healing energy your way. Been away for a few as chemo was kicking my butt this week. Holly, glad made the live keep crushing. Man, thank you, Holly. Man, prayers up for Holly. Holly, thank you for sharing that with us so that we could send some good love and healing energy your way. Cancer sucks. My mama is a breast cancer survivor and a lung cancer survivor. And so, Holly, you're going to kick the butt out of the cancer. You're going through what you need to go through right now, but you're going to heal up. Our Heavenly Father will be watching over you, and you'll be back in no time, baby. So keep it up. Keep coming back. We're really glad to have you here. Thank you for sharing that with us so that we could pray for you and send some healing energy your way and send you some love because we love you. Holly, keep coming back and we'll see you soon. Pro One Bro, what's up? Welcome aboard. Another new member, man. Thank you guys for signing up. Pro One Bro in the house. And we had some DC walk and talks on our membos for our membos this weekend. We went down, looked at the 8647. So scroll back a couple days, check that one out. And we went and put our hand in the reflecting pool. So check that one out if you just joined up as a new membo. Dark Ginger, what's up? 35 months. Thank you, Dark Ginger. That's a long time. That's multiple babies. I don't know how many, but a lot. We appreciate you. Larry Krasner should be in prison. I mean, it feels like an abuse of office, right? You're abusing your position in order to achieve a political outcome. You go in, you swear an oath, in order to do your job and uphold justice and all the things, and then violate that on behalf of convicted criminals, just abandoning ship. And there are laws against abusing your office. So maybe the feds should look into them. And have any of these people been charged with another murder? Like, have any of the people that he's released actually killed somebody else or done something else problematic? He should be responsible for that. Thank you, Dark Ginger, for being here. NC November Girl, what's going on? Yeah, there's a little thesis on this. Could the algae be caused by people that damaged the grass? So we played a clip this morning from CNN. They went out and tested it. I'm kind of kicking myself. I should have tested it. But they had high phosphates, I think is what they found in the water sample, which might come from fertilizer. So somebody may have gone over, let's say, to the grass on the mall, the 8647, dropped off a bunch of Roundup, or people were contemplating maybe they could have sprayed it with gasoline, or I was contemplating maybe it was muriatic acid. They could have just sprayed around with a sprayer, kill the grass instantly, cause the 8647. Don't know all theories. But then maybe after that, they went over and dumped some fertilizer into the reflecting pool to cause the algae bloom to try to wreck everything before July 4th. There is active sabotage in DC. There are other articles out there, you can look it up, talking about the Democrat lunatics cutting fuel lines of the various generators that are being installed around the mall for the Freedom 250 events. Cutting the fuel lines. It's active sabotage. Okay, Donut Mind Me, thank you. Says 17 cases left. 1 that was heard in November, 4 that were heard in January, 2 in Feb, 4 in March. Birthright was April 1, and there are 5 more from April. So that's great. Thank you for those details. And we have just 2 Thursdays left. So we've got tomorrow, and then next week is the 26th, and then we're into July. So we should get a lot of activity tomorrow, I would imagine. Don't know if we're going to get anything good. Don't know if we're going to get Birthright, but it'll be like Christmas morning or like Christmas hell. Well, I don't know, depending on the outcomes. But we'll open them together tomorrow at 10 a.m. And usually what we do is we have SCOTUS blog up. They have a live chat over there. They have Amy Howe or somebody from SCOTUS blog who's actually in there and is reporting on the cases, and then they link the opinion. So we'll just go through them. Yeah, and let's check the latest schedule while we're here. So we have SCOTUS blog. They have a calendar. I don't know if they're going to add any other opinion days. Maybe they have. Yeah, so let me share this with you. This is the actual calendar now. SCOTUS blog has it. So tomorrow is the 18th. Opinions coming out. Then they go to conference. 25th, we've got opinions coming out the following Thursday. So we'll likely be here for both of those days because we're going to have some spicy meatballs to unpack together. Thank you, Donut Mind Me. One old guy says Philly DA is a BLM activist. Like other social justice activist politicians elected to law enforcement positions like DAs, AGs, judges, constables, and sheriffs. He's an activist, not a prosecutor. Cancerous rot on our society. All true. All true. Thank you, one old guy, for the multiple donos today. Once they get elected, they have to serve a particular constituency in order to keep getting reelected. If that constituency has beliefs that are at odds with their actual job duties and description, or are contradictory to what they're supposed to be doing, then they just won't do the thing. And they'll go and release murderers and fail at their jobs miserably. Hey, Jim Tells You in the house. Right next door on YouTube. We'll send you over to Jim Tells You as soon as we're done here. Thank you, Rob, for the reminder. One old guy says, Rich knocking boots with Snots Funnel Man. Rich knocking boots. I know what knocking boots is with the Snots Funnel Man. Well, he did get $1 million, so he is doing pretty well. It's pretty good. Hey, Just John Doe, good to see you. Hey, she let them use her back door. She did. You're talking about backdoor Dugan, man. She let that illegal alien literally have his way with her back door. Shocking behavior from a federal judge. You'd expect some more class and decorum. But she's like, here, do whatever you want with it. Gross. Seriously, been a sub since Rittenhouse, and great to see your channel growth. Great competence and common sense. Man, thank you, John Doe. That's since the beginning. Yeah, I mean, that's when we got started all the way back in 2020. So thank you, Just John Doe. Great to have you here. I really appreciate you saying that. Thanks for becoming a membo and supporting us. Yeah, it's good. You know, we're having a great time here. And we really appreciate our time together. It's a lot of fun, and I feel like we're doing good work together, and I appreciate the community that we're building. So thanks for sticking with us this entire time. And I think the beginning is just now. There's a lot more work to do, and we're glad to be here with you doing it. Thank you. Dan says, over the last 7 years, California has spent over $24 billion on homelessness, yet managed to add 30,000 new homeless individuals. So think about that. 30,000 new homeless individuals, $24 billion. What is it? How much money is that? A lot. They could all be millionaires, give or take. Tattoo in MD. What's up? Tattoo in Maryland. Good to see you. 5 months as a membo, man. Thank you for being here. Says sometimes you got to do it for the story. Yeah, like this was a wingman situation. Maybe there was some other, lady that another neo-Nazi wanted to get with at the Southern Poverty Law Center, but he's like, she never goes anywhere without her friend. Oh, he said, can you come out with us? What's her friend look like? And then, the phrase was fat hog. He's like, oh man, well, come on, man, do it for your bro. Do it for your bro. And I don't know what this word is. I don't know what this word is. What's the dictionary that is Urban Dictionary? Yeah, let me see what this word means. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this phrase chronicles a white woman who dates black men. And I think it's a derogatory phrase. But we saw it in the chat. And am I allowed to say that on YouTube? Says she is. I don't think she is. I don't think she's dating. This is from S. Scrubber. I don't think she was dating a black man unless it was a black man who was a neo-Nazi, which could have been, because we saw that one incident where Dave Chappelle was a Ku Klux Klan member. And I think he was blind, so he didn't even know he was black. But he was also at Klan meetings with the robe and hood on. So S. Scrubber, it could be something like that. Maybe he was Dave Chappelle as a blind Ku Klux Klan member. I don't know. But thank you for the dono, S. Scrubber. We appreciate that. Hey, Pro One Bro, what's going on? Thank you also for the dono, Pro One Bro. We appreciate you being here. And thanks for sending in some love today. Let's see what else, if we got some other comments here. That was a great skit, by the way, from Dave Chappelle. Hey, Humble Sat Boy on Locals. Tired of being called fascist when you're literally not fascist? Apprehensive about joining an anti-fascist group that isn't necessarily living up to its name? Since Antifa is literally not fascist, try NotFa. NotFa is an idea group for people that are literally not fascist. No meetings, no dues, no arson. Join NotFa today. And the next time they call you fascist, tell them, not me. I'm literally NotFa. Yeah. It sounds like a pharmaceutical commercial or something. Thank you for that, Humble Satellite Boy. Hey, Barry, good show this morning and tonight, Rob. Thank you, Barry. I appreciate the positive reinforcement. I need it. Hey, Donald, the Rubos are here. Donald and Cheryl Lynn Rubos right over at rubossaltshop.com, the best salt you've ever had. We use it. Great live stream as usual. Thank you, Rob. Hey, we'd love your opinion on this FOIA request by Newsom's legal affairs secretary in his state office. Can he file a FOIA for records and documents that are part of a current ongoing DOJ investigation? No. And can he use taxpayer funds for what appears to be an investigation into Newsom and his wife's personal financial corruption? So generally, the answer is no. I mean, how many times have we seen that? We've covered many FOIA requests here, and they literally will say ongoing investigation. No, a FOIA exclusion, or they'll say sources and methods, or they'll say internal deliberations. The answer is no. And in fact, today, we just saw a denial of the Southern Poverty Law Center requesting access to grand jury transcripts. They have already been charged, of course. So even after you're charged, you can't go get access to many of the things it looks like he's requesting right now. He wants records that will be used and be contemplated in his future prosecution that would presumably be submitted to a grand jury. Gavin is just out there trying to become the victim. He's trying to engineer a narrative that he's a victim. That's the whole point of this. All of this is just legal maneuvering. It is interesting that he's using his official government office to do that. And he's being investigated for financial crimes. So, yeah, that does seem curious. Are they going to charge him for his private conduct or his public conduct? I think some of it might be his public conduct because they're basically going out. These are donations that they encourage to their certain funds. But I would say a lot of that conduct is wife also conduct. And they're asking for that here. So generally, no. I mean, I would say no. He's not going to get anything here. They're not going to give him anything here. But it's not about that. It's all about the public show. This is all front stage stuff, not backstage stuff. He's trying to pre-butt the charges that are coming, trying to claim that he's a fighter. And so I would imagine this is all criminal. Quick read of the letter. Yeah, we'll be looking forward to seeing what the FOIA people say, but he's not going to get anything. I would imagine like virtually nothing, but we'll see. Thank you, Rubos, for that. Hey, no doubt there's ex-military Plattner types helping coordinate some of these left-wing groups, right? I would imagine, yeah. I would definitely imagine that's true. Thank you, Humble. And Dan, should be able to donate for the Amos and Amish thing here. Go to 1776lawcenter.com. And I think that's Robert Barnes's organization, right? I gave money to both the general fund and to the Amish outing. Man, you're amazing, Dan. Amazing to support those efforts. And I think they have an event coming up, right? The Robert Barnes team, something. Thought I saw that. So yeah, I don't think thank you, Rubos. I don't think that they're going to get anything at all. But it's not about that. This is court of public opinion stuff, not court of law stuff. He's just trying to set a narrative and then act as a fighter and then say, see, once he gets denied, he's going to say, see, they're not telling me anything. This is abusive. I have a right to free records. I thought this wasn't a transparent administration and they're not releasing anything. Just to continue to be the perpetual victim, which is what many good Californians do. Hey, one old guy, 30,000 new homeless in LA and over 29,000 without homes in the Palisades fires, to include a certain mayoral candidate and his family called Spencer Pratt, who knew that costed money. Who knew that costed money to not do your job? Mayor Bass Akyards, or Bass Akyards, is the greatest, from one old guy. Yep, one old guy. And I don't think the 29,000 people who lost their homes are getting a appropriation of $24 billion or whatever the number was, because they're not homeless. You can't actually steal from them. Deborah Meyer, hey, wow, time's flying when having fun. It's true, Deborah. That is a long time, man. 33 months. That's multiple babies. Really appreciate you being here, being a membo for so long. We've been through a lot together. Had some good times, had some difficult times, but we're hopefully better for it. I know I am. Thank you, Deborah. Also bringing in 5 new membos. Oh, I wish I would have thought of that. Her name is Heidi Bfat. That's how you pronounce it. Heidi Bfat. Yeah, that's right. Hey, Andrea Gleason got a membo, courtesy of Deborah Myers. Thank you, Deborah. Jeremiah Burns, welcome. TM Carter is here. Dill Marie, welcome. Or something. And the Pup House, all gifted membos in the house. What a beautiful day it is. Very excited to meet our new membos. Tomorrow morning, we'll be live 10 a.m. across the board to see if we get that big, juicy Supreme Court case called birthright citizenship. And did I miss a super dono? Let me double check over here. We may have missed it. Michelle Parsons, did you send one in? Let's take a look. I think we did miss it, but here it is from Michelle. One has to wonder if any of the 350,000 missing children could have disappeared through stateside R gangs. So are you talking about in the UK? Yeah, I think the number in the UK was 250 is what they identified, but he said it might be much higher than that. But I think in that report, we looked at it a little bit this morning, Michelle. I don't know if you made it to this morning's stream, but at the end of the stream, the final segment was about that report. And they were saying that many of them were actually trafficked out of the UK and sent back into the other countries where they're forced into Islamic marriages and other things like that. So I don't know if they're coming into the United States or if, I mean, I think a lot of the trafficking here has been into the United States until recently. Could have disappeared through stateside gangs. Like, do we have those gangs here? And maybe you're talking about the 350,000 missing. I know what you're talking about. It took me a minute. But the Joe Biden missing children and the Joe Biden missing families. Yeah, man. Maybe that's exactly what happened. Maybe that's why they're gone. Yeah. Michelle, it's a horrific thought. So while we're talking about the 250,000 in the UK, we're also asking, where did all the missing kids go in the United States? Maybe that's exactly what happened. Sick. No, the US, if we have them here, we might. Yeah, from the Biden era. Tim Jake, thanks for the correction. 480,000 missing kids. I think they're trying to track them down. So, yeah, apparently you would be able to find them if you were competent, but maybe they're gone. Maybe there's nothing to do about that. No, we'll go live across the board. So tomorrow at 10 a.m., we will not have, it will be open to everybody. So not just a members only stream, because it's Supreme Court time and we're just going to make sure we cover it live. So it should be good. So come and join us. If you're not a membo, come on back. We'll be here 10 a.m. And if you are a membo, we love you. And we'll see you in the morning as well. Dan, shouting out Barnes, 1776 event, Chattanooga, Tennessee, first weekend of August, 2026. I didn't get the invite, but I know what's going on. Milo phone bill. Tomorrow's Supreme Court announcement is a nail biter. See you all tomorrow. And that's Michael Jackson with the popcorn. It should be fun. Yeah, it should be fun. Or maddening and enraging. But either way, we'll get through it together and try not to throw something out the window. So it should be fun. But my friends, we'll pause here for the day. We'll shout out some friends on X if we have any comments. And then we'll close it out. Of course, we'll be back in the morning for SCOTUS business. Rob says, I think you're thinking of a Polaris that runs by a water pump. No, I know what a Polaris is. It's not a Polaris. That's a crap piece of equipment. It's the Arneson Navigator. I don't know if they still make them. They must. It's the best pool cleaner that's out there. It's vacuum run. The Arneson Navigator. They're not sponsoring this show, but they should be. Hey, what's going on? Neuro D. Join the watchers on Locals for morning Membo streams. We have great Membo streams. We have a lot of fun. And we have a great community. Great way to meet people. Have a great show, my beautiful friend. Thank you, Gold Star Mom. Looks like SD Gold Star Mom, maybe. And now let's secure our federal election integrity. TJ Toberman. We also talked about that this morning. We had a good segment on Trump now saying, oh, you guys hate Bill Pulte so much that you'll twist yourselves into pretzels to get Jay Clayton confirmed just so that he's not even in there for a day. Too damn bad. Jay Clayton will not have his confirmation hearing today, and we'll put him back. When you give us the SAVE Act, I'll give you FISA. So Trump is playing hardball, man. It's been beautiful to see on that issue in particular. And one old guy says, correction, it's Mayor Bass Ackwards. That's right. I think I knew what you were trying to get. I just couldn't put it together. My bad. Keyboard warrioring. Yeah, I think you were saying I was thinking backyard, but it's ass backwards is what you were trying to say. So it's Bass Ackwards. Yeah. One old guy. Good to see you. Yeah, it's the Arneson Navigator. Arneson Navigator. Is that still out there? Hayward. Arneson Navigator, man. It's a good one. I missed that pump. I missed that cleaner. Here, let me see if there's a good image. Are they making these anymore? I don't think they are. Yeah. This was the man right here. This little fella. You guys remember those? Yeah. Don't know if they have any of those anymore. Doesn't look like they're showing up. They might have different models or something. But that was a very nicely designed pool cleaner. I fixed a lot of those. You have to replace the feet. The flaps sometimes go bad. But, you know, basic maintenance. I mean, it moves around, cleans your pool beautifully. I'm sure they've got some other models just like that. But it was a great design. The Polaris and the other ones were much crappier. It's good. All right, so friends, we'll pause here on the day. It has been a beautiful day. We'll see if we get Birthright tomorrow. We may not. It may be, some dull cases like Verizon or something. But if it is, no worries. We'll see it. And we'll get into it together. So we'll pause here for the day. Thank you for joining us. Happy Wednesday. Hopefully your week has been amazing. All downhill from here. We'll have some fun tomorrow morning, reviewing some SCOTUS business to attend to. Otherwise, I hope your rest is beautiful and peaceful and relaxing and you have brilliant dreams. Big thank yous to our mods and meme smiths. We got Muffin Rando. We got Donut Mind Me. Shout out to John. We got K Bean and Carrie B. Of course, Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger, Geegum Geegum, Elliot, and Just Rhonda. Keeping things nice and beautiful around here. And thank you, my friends, for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done that. Thanks for sharing the show with a friend or family member. And thanks for coming back tomorrow because we're going to get into it again tomorrow early. And we'll see you back here to do so because in order to do this appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night. Sleep very, very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. Bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's those lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted ruse. Together we are watching the watchers shine in the light, watching the watchers defending what's right, watching the watchers stay each night together and live